And now we're going to be zooming into North America, how North America is approaching PPA contracts, and what's the difference compared to how Europe has been dealing with that. And for that, I'm delighted to invite the Customer Success Manager at EU at LevelTen Energy, Gabriel Umaña.
Thank you, and very nice to be here. So, yeah, I was invited to show you a little bit the differences between North America and Europe with regards to PPAs, no? So, what you're about to see is a number of graphs of statistics that we collect at LevelTen. But before, I would like just to ask to the audience, like, how many of you have ever considered off-site PPA once, twice, or at all? Okay, so we have like 25%, 30% of the audience, so that's good. If there's any questions, I'm gonna leave like 5 minutes at the end for you to ask. So, let me introduce first. So what is LevelTen? LevelTen is an infrastructure platform. So we are the biggest energy marketplace in the world. We have US and Europe covered. We are in more than 21 countries in Europe. And we cover also Canada and United States. So we've been in the market for 2016. And in Europe, we've been since 2019. Perfect moment to start in Europe, no? Just before the crisis. That was pretty interesting. But what we do is that we are sitting in the middle. So we are not in the buy side, we are not in the sell side, we are in both sides of the equation. So how do we do this? We provide three, let's say, services. We do energy marketplace, that is the one that I'm gonna be talking here. We also provide an asset marketplace, that the idea is that you can sell your assets through mostly the transactions that we manage are between developers. And also data solutions. So we gather a lot of data. How much data? So let's put some numbers here. So by the numbers, we have facilitated more than 5 billion in transactions since we started. Last year, for example, we facilitated more than 75 million megawatt hours of transactions of PPAs in Europe and in North America. How do we do this? So first, we have the sell side. So we cover more than 750. I think this year we break the 800 developer record. In Europe, we have more than 350 developers in the 21 countries that I just mentioned. Some of them are more active than others. And in the US, we have around 400 developers. Developers, we mentioned like IPPs, retailers, and utilities. And on the buy side, we stopped, let's say, having direct buyers coming to us, let's say, procurement managers that are experienced coming to LevelTen. Why was that? Because we prefer to act with a partner. That's why we have more than 45 partners in our Accelerate Partnership Program. One of them is CNC, which we're happy to work with their clients towards a contracting of a PPA. So right now, it's not about talking about LevelTen, but it's about talking about North America and Europe. So we're gonna start with North America, giving you a little bit of a glimpse of what the market is showing right now. As you could see here, you could see the platform, how it looks. This is the user experience, and we collect solar, wind, storage, hydro, wind and storage, and solar plus storage projects for off-site PPAs. Usually, they come offering a fixed price, but we can also offer an off-site sharing price, market following price. And we are acting in 8 of the deregulated markets from the US and Canada, only one market in Canada. We gather information from IPPs, utilities, and retailers, and let's say that we are talking about a very experienced market in the US with more than 10 years of a very, let's say, big activity in the US. What is happening in the US? Very similar to what is happening in Europe. So you could see very stable prices, as Jens showed us in our presentation, until 2021, that you could see a hype, of course. Mainly, let's say what triggered this was the crisis that began in Europe, but that, of course, had an immediate impact on the US. I know the numbers are not the best, so I'm sorry for the ones in the back. But let's say that right now, on 2023 Q1 prices, solar P25 sits on 49.52, wind P25 sits on 51.12, and the blended average sits on 50.32. So what is P25 for us? So as we gather many information and we run RFPs, last year we were running more than 1.5 RFPs per week in both North America and Europe, The idea is that we can give you like big information of the price on the market. So this contains all the 6 deregulated markets in North America. And the P25 is the 25% more competitive offers. Why is that? Because we believe that 25% competitive offers are the ones that are being transacted in the market. The other ones are nice to have, but they are not closing in the market. What we have seen is that, of course, the solar and the wind and the blended had an increase from one quarter to another of 8.5% and 5%. And why is this? Like last quarter on Q3 2022, we saw a small decrease on the wind price. This is basically because that's when the Inflation Reduction Act was announced. Of course, it came into act the 1st of January this year. But let's say that developers are still working to understand what does IRA mean. So they're trying to understand how this is going to affect my development, how is this going to affect my pricing for the customers. So that's why we saw a slight decrease on wind, but solar keeps on going up. LevelTen P25, let's say, rose on 5%, and solar climbed another 8.5%. But if you compare this percent from one year to another, we saw an immense amount, let's say, on solar P25 of 37% of increase and wind of 18% of increase. So you're going to see, like, after this presentation, also what happened in Europe throughout the time that LevelTen has been in the market. And we see a very similar graph, but with a very different, let's say, percentages over time. What we have seen is that given the market conditions right now, buyers and developers realize that they have to find success through a partnership approach. That means that they have to work together towards signing a PPA. It's no more a buyer's market, and this may be not a good news to all of you, but before the crisis started, the PPA market was absolutely a buyer's market. That means that the buyer came to the market, they say, I need a 5-year PPA, I need a 10-year PPA with these conditions, this is my investment grade, this is going to be my parent company guarantee, whatever you wanted to bring to the table, the developers were making an offer to you. The market has shifted completely. And last year, we were seeing totally a seller's market. Now we can see a more equilibrated market, and that's why we want to just highlight that, the PPA market now functions towards a partnership approach. This is a little bit on the prices throughout the whole North America. I'm not going to stop, let's say, in a specific. But as you could see, in all the markets that we have gathered information, you could see increases from one year to another of around 40 to 33%, 25%. And of course, in only one market that you could see, in only one market, that is the wind market in ERCOT, you could see a decrease on the price. In all the others, you have seen increase on the price. And why is this? Even if the IRA is giving developers, let's say, an advantage, economically speaking, on development and on the pricing, and now that the markets have become a little bit more stable, demand is at its highest. So why is that? Now, the RECs, the renewable energy certificates that Dina was talking about, before were really cheap. Now, what is happening is that they are at so high level, and you are competing with the high-tech companies that have very strong sustainability commitments, not only the tech companies, but also manufacturing, telcos, all these companies that are under RE100 and some other sustainability commitments, they are facing very, very high demand for RECs. That means that that's why they're so high right now in the market. So all of these companies are looking for two things. Get the RECs in the market, and that's why they're going for a PPA, and hedging their long-term position. Hedging their long-term position, of course, is a tricky thing, Who knows what is going to happen in the future, and that's why, let's say, in 2020, the people that were closing PPAs in 2019 were freaking out, and the ones that didn't close and started process on 2020 and didn't close them there, then in 2022, we're saying exactly as Maria Marquera and these guys, they were saying like, okay, we made a big mistake because in Spain they could be offering what, like 30 euros? Now it could be sitting at 45, 50. So we're going to start to see, let's say, a little bit of the dynamics. Also, let's say that wind prices have increased that much and solar prices in ERCOT and in PJM, mainly because there has been some regulations on Texas as well that they are approving. They just, let's say, put 9 bills trying to approve new gas projects. So this is going, let's say, against what the IRA is trying to do, that is promoting clean technology. So you could see the market going back and forth a little bit, but nothing but stable. You could see in the graph here that it's nothing but stable. It's in a high, and we do not believe that this is gonna, let's say, go back to 2020 levels just because sustainability commitments are around the corner on 2025, and demand is gonna be very high. What are the 3 main reasons? I didn't want to mention let's say, the big reason that everyone is mentioning all the time, that is the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Why is that? Mainly because we all know what that happened to the market. But what are the 3 main reasons according to developers and buyers in the US? Inflation. Inflation has had an enormous impact for the developers or sellers that are doing project finance. So let's say in the energy marketplace, we have around 60 to 70% of independent power producers. That means that they do not finance their projects with equity. They go to a bank. Once they sign a PPA, they go to a bank, and that's why the majority of the projects that we put on the energy marketplace are newly built projects, because it gives you additionality. They need a PPA, they go to the bank, and inflation is affecting a lot their prices. Second of that, supply chain issues coming from Asia. This has created a lot of bottlenecks on the deployment of the projects, and the capex increase that comes also from the supply chain, the demand, and the human rights regulation with the Xinjiang region with regards to the US, that they're being very, let's say, demanding with solar projects, and that's why you could see in New York, ISO, this huge increment in the price. What you're gonna see here, and I just wanna, let's say, mention this. I don't know how much of you are aware between the difference of a price of an offsite PPA and the value of an offsite PPA. We're talking about 2 different and 2 very, very different things. So when you're contracting an offsite PPA, let's say you're here in Germany and you want to contract a project in Spain, you don't care that much about the price. You care about the value of that PPAs. That means the difference between what the energy forecast in the future is giving to you and the fixed PPA price. That's the value. That difference is the value. So of course you want that to be positive. If not, that means that you're paying for that, let's say, guarantees of origin that you're receiving. Here in the US, it's similar. We produce and we partner with at least 5 in the US and 3 in Europe, market forecast, and nobody's saying the market forecasts have, let's say, the reality of what is gonna happen in the future. Like, absolutely not. So you could see here that you find the positive, the 0, and all that it's above, it's positive contracts. So in this case, you could see that at least 4 markets are giving the US positive values. So now trying to move a little bit faster, what is happening in the future? This is the projected settlement value. Right now, if you contract a PPA, you will see a negative value. That means that you're paying 9.26 in wind, and at the end you will be paying 3.30. If you compare this to the value of the RECs, it's even, like competitive price. So at the end, it's a good idea to go for a PPA. What is going in Europe? So solar is going down, finally. We are going to start to see a little bit more of equilibrium in the market. This is great. On the wind, we were not able to supply, let's say, on 2022 Q4. That was very bad, but it's because wind development in Europe is very bad. It's very bad right now. Permitting is complicated. Offering, let's say that demand is very high for this type of project. So if they produce it in France or in Norway or in Sweden, they go immediately out of the marketplace because we have some buyers that are very, let's say, eager to contract this. My point here is, like, you could see exactly the same behavior as in the US, a hype from 2022 Q1 that has been going on, and of course, we're not gonna stop in each of the markets because I only have 5 minutes, as they just told me. So you could see some markets going like insanely high. Let's say the Netherlands went from 1 year to another on 70% increase. You could see here like a percentage in wind in Spain of 50%. Like on last year, let's say, like you could find a PPA wind around the 40s. Now you're finding wind in Spain around the 64. Now in Spain, in solar, also you have seen an increase of 35. And the UK, no mention with the UK. Since the UK is no longer, let's say, allowing the guarantees of origin from Europe to the UK, this market has become crazy. We have run many RFPs in the UK just because the buyers from the UK only can contract in the UK. And this just, let's say, make the market go crazy looking for PPAs, and that makes, of course, the price go up. So let's say, what I've been showing here is that it's very similar to what is happening in Europe versus the US in PPA pricing going up. What is interesting is that now we see a trend in Europe. While in the US is going up, the prices, the last quarter, now we're starting to see the European prices go down. Why is that? Because, of course, we think that the hype of the market already passed, and there are some problems, apart from the ones that I mentioned in the US, that it's permitting, bottleneck, and, of course, development costs. I just want to go to a couple of slides more. So you could also see the difference. While in the US, the value of the PPA was going up, according to the energy market forecast, the value in Europe is going down. So that means that our energy market forecasts are saying that from 2027 to 2038, the market will stabilize again. I just want to quote Jens, nobody knows what is going to happen for sure, but this is a reason that right now, if you contract something on 2025 and 2024, you will be, let's say, using the hype of the market. Now, what are the key differences here? COD is very important. That's why on 2025 in the US is going up a little bit, because people have sustainability commitments. And in Europe, you don't see that much of a difference. If you wait, let's say, if you wait until after 2025, you will see a down in the market, which is great. What is also very important between the difference between one another is North America, the economies of scale work much better on PPA pricing. The highest that you're contracting, the most competitive price, that would be sitting below $50. If you're only contracting for 10 gigawatt hours per year, you would be sitting between $70. And in Europe, let's say, that difference is not so prominent. This is the PPA term lengths in our energy marketplace that we have been moving. So the solar in the US, it's around 14.4 years. In Europe, it's 10.6, and the wind is 14.5, and in Europe, it's 10.6. So this is one of the key differences. Also, who is contracting? So while in Europe, one of the biggest, let's say, players in the market is manufacturing and industrial, in the US, the biggest player is tech companies. Also, tech companies plays a very big role here, but in Europe, also to mention that it's very important, utilities are one of the key players in Europe, and you're competing. If you want to go for a PPA, you are competing against the utilities, and utilities have much more expertise, and they, of course, are going to prioritize the speed. So I just want to mention and finish my presentation with two things. We did a survey to all of our users in North America, why the PPAs are falling apart. Speed is one of the things. So don't let that happen of what happened to Mike, maybe, that, take too long contracting the PPA. Second, transparency. Transparency is please explain to the developer how hard it is to you to get the stakeholder alignment. The price, the conditions precedent, the contract structure. In Europe, we have seen the market following is one of the contract structure preferred, just because developers, let's say, protect themselves with this. 6, the basis risk sharing in Europe is very important as well. 7, the target volume. 8, internal approvals. And 9, the development risk sharing. These are the reasons why the deals are falling apart. And if you ask LevelTen why it is so much easier to sign a PPA in the US rather than in Europe, the key difference is derivative accounting. So why is that? If you are contracting a PPA in Europe, an offsite PPA for a fixed price, which is very competitive, I promise that it's competitive according to our market forecasts, you will have to be exposed to derivative accounting. And that requires a lot of help. So don't try to do this by yourself. We are not accounting experts. I guess you are not accounting experts. Get the enough support from accounting experts to deal with a PPA in Europe. In the US, they don't have this problem, so that's why it's much easier for them to contract, and that's why the market is moving much more faster than in Europe. But we have seen a lot of activity this year. Thank you very much.